What's going on, everybody? Today we're diving back into my now home state of Colorado. If you've been on the channel before, you know how endless the adventures are in this state. From hiking to backpacking to canyons, waterfalls, 14ers, and so much more, Colorado has it all. If you haven't been on the channel before, hit that subscribe button. On the channel you'll find hundreds of travel guides, top 10s, and hiking vlogs. After traveling the country and across the globe for the last 8 years, I can confidently say that Colorado has some of the best alpine lakes in the world. So let's dive right into the video. This is my top 10 alpine lake hikes in Colorado. First up on the list is Coline Lake, a beautiful trail in the southwest San Juan Mountains. The trailhead is practically the side of the road of the $1 Million Highway, which is the most famous and scenic drive in the state. The views just getting to the trailhead are breathtaking. From the trailhead, you'll start your hike on Coline Lake Trail number 509, and it'll be an 8-mile round-trip hike with just under 3,000 feet of elevation gain. After the first mile or so, you aren't really hiking in the trees, mostly open fields and on the sides of the mountain, so you have a wide open view for most of the trail, with the view only getting better as you get higher in elevation. The lake is so beautiful. It's a rich, deep blue that just glows when the sun hits it. It's a great place to see wildflowers, and it's great for photography. If you hike this during wildflower season, you'll see a variety of flowers, but make sure to look for the state flower, the columbine. There's an endless amount of them on this trail. And you are allowed to drone here, but I will note we hiked extra early to fly before any other hikers were on the trail, always trying to be respectful of other hikers' time out in the mountains. The hike to Coline Lake is best done during the summer months when the weather is milder and the peaks aren't covered in snow. At number 2, we have Isabelle Glacier, which is located in the Brainerd Lake Recreation Area outside of Nederland, Colorado. The trailhead is only 1 hour and 10 minutes from Denver. It's only 48 miles of driving, but the last 10 or so miles are on steep, winding roads, so it takes a while. If you do this entire hike, it'll be 8.5 miles round trip with 1,650 feet of elevation gain. However, this is all the way back to the glacier, which is pretty tucked in there. You can do this or hike as little as you want. There's a few destinations along this trail, so no matter how far you go, it'll be amazing. Although the views do continue to get cooler and cooler. Along this trail, you'll get to see Long Lake, Lake Isabelle, an unnamed lake under Shoshone Peak, and then the glacier at the very end. Bree and I were pretty sick the morning we hiked this, so we only made it to the unnamed lake. We did see the glacier from a distance, but honestly the unnamed lake was so freaking cool that we were stoked on this even though we didn't go all the way to the glacier. Next up is Blue Lakes in Telluride, Colorado, arguably the bluest lake in the state. There's a few places in Colorado named Blue Lakes, so to help make sure you know the one I'm referring to, this Blue Lakes is geographically 5 miles north of Telluride and geographically 10 miles west of Ouray. To get here, you'll be driving on Road 62 near Ridgeway, where you'll turn onto a dirt road and drive 9 miles to the trailhead. This is a triple header hike where you'll get to see 3 lakes, Lower, Middle, and Upper Blue Lakes. The hike is 8.7 miles round trip with 2,500 feet of elevation gain, and these are the specs if you go to all of the lakes, so if you'd like, you could opt for a slightly shorter hike. You're also going to be right below Mount Sneffels, which is my favorite 14er in Colorado alongside Long's Peak, so the views are going to be phenomenal on the entire hike. To get to the trailhead, it's worth noting that you should have a vehicle with clearance. 4-wheel drive isn't necessary, but clearance is very helpful. We did make it here in my Toyota Corolla. We've had this hike on our bucket list for years, but have never had a vehicle to make it, so I was determined to get my Corolla to the trailhead. There were some very dicey moments, but we made it. Although this is not advice, and you should drive there at your own risk, in the risk of your own vehicle. For the lakes, my favorite and easily the best lake of the 3 is Lower Blue Lake. The other lakes are very cool, don't get me wrong, but Lower Lake is unbelievably aqua blue, like a bottle of cool blue Gatorade. Aside from the beautiful lakeside views here, seeing Lower Blue Lake from above is also very cool, so even if you don't go to all 3 lakes, make sure to get slightly above Lower Lake to see the aerial view looking down. At number 4, we have Willow Lakes, which is a short drive north of Breckenridge to the trailhead outside of Silverthorne. The trailhead is called Willowbrook Trailhead, but if you search Willow Lakes on Google Maps, it'll automatically show up. The trail is 11.5 miles with 2,750 feet of elevation gain. The grades aren't overly steep, but since the hike is so long, the elevation does add up. We just hiked this trail last summer and it blew us away. It's so beautiful. The peaks are jagged and have a unique look to them compared to other alpine lake hikes in the state. We hiked this trail for sunrise and had it all to ourselves. It was awesome and we really enjoyed just hanging at the lakeshore and lounging out. And then as we make the drive out from the trailhead, it'd be a shame not to mention Dillon Reservoir. It's the massive body of fresh water in Summit County just off of I-70. It's worth taking the rest stop to see this regardless of where you're driving to after Willow Lakes. Next up is Herman Gulch, which is just a 1-hour drive from downtown Denver. The trailhead for Herman Gulch is right off of I-70. It's a beautiful hike that makes for an awesome morning outing. The hike is very steep and most of it's hiking in the trees, so it's not that scenic for most of the trail, but getting to the lake after the trees is worth the 6.5 mile round trip hike with 1,800 feet of elevation gain. Bree and I started this hike in the dark to see sunrise at the lake, and I couldn't recommend this enough. Also, it's worth mentioning that we didn't see a single other person for hours, so we had it all to ourselves, which is surprising because of how popular this trail is. On the hike down, we saw hundreds of people, so it's worth the early wake-up call. If you're looking to extend your hike or add some adventure to your day, you can climb the 13er behind Herman Gulch, which is called Pettingill Peak. There is an easy Class 1 to Class 2 hike up to the summit, or you can do the East Ridge, which is what we did, a very fun Class 3 ridgeline. Before doing this hike, make sure you do your research and check the mountain forecast. The way we took is a rock scramble and not a leisurely hike. Our next Alpine lake hike has taken us back to the San Juan Mountains to hike Island Lake and Ice Lake via the Ice Lakes Trail. This hike is a short drive down a dirt road off of the $1 Million Highway, and I want to note that I haven't done this hike in 5 to 6 years, although I am itching to get back to climb some of the peaks here. But that being said, things may have changed, but when we went, the road was dirt. Any car could make it to the trailhead though, and the trailhead is right across the street from South Mineral Campground. And you do have to register for the hike, and at that time, camping up on the trail was as easy as registering in the same book. I still don't believe you need any permits for either of these, hiking or backpacking, but don't quote me on this one. As you start the trail, the hike is a steep one. It's roughly 7 to 8 miles with 2,700 feet of elevation gain, but it's so worth it. Ice Lake is one of the bluest lakes in Colorado. It's more of a deep blue than aqua, at least when we saw it, but it was breathtaking. And then a short hike around the mountain, the trail will take you to Island Lake. This lake is right under Ulysses S. Grant Peak. There's a beautiful island in the middle of the lake, and this lake has beautiful deep green colors, backdropped by the San Juan Mountains. This is a bucket list hike, and it's a great one to see wildflowers on. Next up at number 7 is Maroon Bells, one of the most iconic and recognizable views and lakes in the whole state. Located just 10 miles away from Aspen, this is a beautiful place to spend the day at. It's one of the most popular destinations, so you will need a parking permit. You'll need to park in town and also reserve a ticket for the shuttle. But once you get up to Maroon Lake and Maroon Bells, it's extremely accessible and also very family friendly. There's less than a quarter mile of walking involved from the shuttle stop on a paved walkway. But if you're an adventurous soul, the lake viewpoint is also the trailhead to climb a few 14ers. Maroon Peak, North Maroon Peak, Pyramid Peak, Snowmass Mountain, and you can do the 4-pass loop backpacking trip. Maroon Bells is a beautiful place to visit year-round, but it might be the most special during fall foliage. Tickets for the shuttle are $16 per person, with kids under 12 and seniors above 65 only being $10 per ticket. It's easy to get a ticket online, but I highly recommend getting this ahead of time because it does sell out, especially on weekends and holidays. For our next 2 hikes on the list, we're heading to Rocky Mountain National Park, 90 minutes northwest from downtown Denver. Our first one at number 8 is Chasm Lake, which is accessed from Longs Peak Trailhead between Allens Park and Estes Park. The hike is 8 miles round trip with 2,600 feet of elevation gain, and it'll take you past Peacock Pool and then on to Chasm Lake. The hike can be done year-round, although you definitely want to be extra prepared with the necessary gear if you go for this one in the winter. The views here are amazing as you are right under Longs Peak, which is one of Colorado's 58 14,000-foot mountains, and it's the only one inside Rocky Mountain. Aside from the Class 3 hiking route up this famous 14er, there's hundreds of rock climbing routes, most of which are on the Diamond, the sheer vertical granite wall you'll enjoy views of from Chasm Lake. The Diamond is a 900-foot vertical section of Longs Peak that is all above 13,000 feet, making this area home to a classic world-famous alpine climb. From Chasm Lake, you get to enjoy views of Longs, the Diamond, Mount Lady Washington, and Mount Meeker. The time I hiked this in the winter, the lake was covered in snow, but in early winter, I have seen videos of people ice skating and playing hockey on the frozen lake, and it looks so cool. So if ice skating or playing hockey at 12,000 feet above sea level interests you, make sure to check this one out. Our next hike in the park is going to be a few mountains and valleys over as we make our way to Andrews Glacier. This is a much lesser trafficked hike in the park compared to Chasm Lake, although it does begin from Glacier Gorge Trailhead, so while you will avoid most of the crowds at Andrews Glacier itself, on the trail you will be with a lot of other hikers. But with each mile you hike, the crowd should dissipate. The hike is 9.2 miles round trip with 2,300 feet of elevation gain, and you'll get to see multiple destinations on the way. The first one being Alberta Falls, and then you'll pass the lock. Shortly after you pass this lake, there will be a fork in the trail. To the left will take you to Sky Pond, and to the right you'll make your way to Andrews Tarn. I highly recommend downloading offline trail maps before going because it can be very easy to miss this turn, and once you make the turn there will be a bit of route finding on the trail, so it could be easy to get lost. My buddy Aavron and I did this trail in the early morning and actually made it to the lake just as the sun was rising. The alpenglow on the peaks around the lake was beautiful. One note on this hike in Chasm Lake, for Rocky Mountain you're going to need a timed entry permit for 6 months of the year surrounding the summer months. This is to help the flow of traffic and park visitors, so if you visit during May and October, it's something to keep in mind. Last up at number 10, we're going to be hiking Hanging Lake. The trailhead is smack dab in the middle of Glenwood Canyon off of I-70. The hike will take you to cascading waterfalls that all fall into a colorful blue and emerald body of water. I'm not sure if this pool is technically a lake, but I'm gonna say it is, plus it's in the name, Hanging Lake, but in comparison to all the other lakes in this video, this is the smallest lake without a doubt. The trail is 3 miles round trip with roughly 1,200 feet of elevation gain. However, all of that elevation gain is in 1 mile. So after walking along the river for half a mile from the trailhead, the hike goes straight uphill until you make it to the lake. Due to crowds, you do need a permit to hike this trail, but it's very easy to get this. Permits can be purchased on Visit Glenwood's website. Between May and October, they are $12 per person, and between November and February, it's $10 per person. Both options include self-parking at Hanging Lake Rest Area, which is the trailhead. They recommend returning to your car 3 hours after your reservation time for other hikers to come in, but it is okay if the hike takes you longer. If you're hiking this on a weekend during the summer, I'd recommend getting the permit ahead of time, but on a weekday or off-season, you should be fine getting this last minute. The water at Hanging Lake is crystal clear and a beautiful aqua blue and green. That mixed with the lush vegetation and cascading waterfalls just makes this one of the most beautiful places in Colorado. Also, a short hike past the lake is a waterfall called Spouting Rock, which is a beautiful waterfall that comes right out of the mountain. Before signing off on this video, I want to include a few honorable mentions that didn't make it in the 10. It would be hard to make this video without mentioning Vestal Lake and Sky Pond, 2 incredible alpine lakes in the state. Sky Pond is a great day hike in Rocky Mountain, a lake situated right under the Shark's Tooth and just 1 mountain over from Andrews Glacier. Vestal Lake is a much less trafficked lake deep in the Weminuche Wilderness in the San Juans. I camped here while climbing Vestal Peak's Wham Ridge with my buddy Patrick. Vestal Peak is one of the coolest mountains I've ever seen, so it makes the lake under it very special. And for the next honorable mentions, I haven't been to these, but they're all high on my bucket list, so I thought I'd share them. They are Hope Lake, Lost Lake, and Mirror Lake under Lone Eagle Peak. But that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you liked it. Like I mentioned earlier, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, it'd mean the world to me. On my channel, I have a top 10 hikes and places to visit video for Rocky Mountain National Park, Ouray, Glenwood Springs, Breckenridge, and the state as a whole, plus a handful of travel guides from the rest of the country and abroad. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys later.